The capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill. And the willingness to learn is a choice. So says Brian Herbert. And so it is, as we began our conversation yesterday, call it a dialogue, call it a discourse between friends, people who are meeting, coming to the table, where the weekend deal serves as a melting pot for minds who are concerned, for minds who care. You know how we set our tone on Weekend Deal every day. We start with a background feature. And today, Francis is taking a look at vocational and technical institutions. According to Dr. Woolfoy, he says, when they are well situated, they drive economic growth and development in every great country.
It is no longer news that the type and quality of education a nation offers to its citizens is a function of the level of progression of that nation. Moreover, technical and vocational education and training has been recognized as the educational system responsible for economic growth of any nation.
Without vocational education, the country is in a mess. You will not be able to train manpower, active manpower, that are able to drive the economy. You know, people from time to time, they pay emphasis on degrees. Degree this, my child is this, my child. But when you acquire all these degrees, what will you do with those degrees? You see that if economy is not driven by technical people, there's no way that the economy will survive.
Despite all the glaring contributions of technical and vocational education, Nigeria is yet to accord this type of education the attention it deserves. This is one of the major reasons for the rising speed of unemployment, poverty, and unabated crimes in the society today.
Parents also began to look at it that their children in technical school, because if you become maybe you are a carpenter, can you put carpenter as a title to your name? And then that party, social party began to play. And then people began to lose interest. And government did not help issue. The technical colleges, some of them were converted to College of Technology. Even when there were no infrastructure, there were no equipments, there were no tools enough to sustain the technical and vocational education itself. Get an engineer, let him lose 10 knots from an engine and see whether he will be able to know where to fix them. But in those days, if you attend technical college or vocational education, you are given this basic training, basic scientific knowledge, basic skills that helps you understand. It is practically oriented.
Before you accredit any school, you have to come and say, show us your lab, where the children learn practically. Without practical education, you are not training a child for goodness sake. It's 419. You must, if you go around this place, you will see real practical where children do woodwork. We engage them in woodwork. We engage them even in swimming, in case they want to become fishermen in future. We don't neglect any field at all. So you see, computer, you train them practically.
Unfortunately, we live in a society that places high value on white-collar jobs and professionals, while we consider blue-collar jobs as low status. Also, there is too much emphasis on university education, which has reduced the economic opportunities for those who are more work-oriented. After all, not all can afford a university degree, and not everyone is academically inclined.
Most of the people, name them biggest, many of them were school dropouts. But what do? They have what God put something in them. They didn't play with their practical knowledge. So let us emphasize the paper qualification and then emphasize more on practical training of our children. If a child is well trained, for example, you cannot go and hire him to become a thug.
It is amazing as foreign artisans from neighboring countries such as Togo, Benin Republic and Ghana litter the streets of Nigeria doing the jobs meant for indigenous artisans.
When we did POP, many people brought their quotations. And somebody from Togo came. His own was 2 times more than what our local artisans were giving us. But we gave it to him because when they do work for you, go and sleep. You don't need to be following them up and down. They know what to do practically.
You know, we used to provide this technical aid to other African countries. So what happened? Why did it stop? Why now the preference of bringing these outside people to come and do the work that Nigerians are supposed to do? And you pay them our hard-earned foreign exchange. And they take this money, they don't develop here, they don't build any industry here, they don't do anything here. It's a big worry.
As a workshop-based education, technical and vocational education is concerned with the method of processing materials, using tools and equipment into products of economic value. Indeed, it holds the key to national development.
In schools like this, start early to tell them the meaning of vocational studies. Don't take it for granted. By the time we are doing like this, we see that it will start growing. It start growing. Go to a place like a GSM village. You will see what they are doing there. That is vocational studies.
We must look at how to bring up these young ones and engage them positively. You understand? That is the only way to remove them from crime. That's the only way to remove them from idling about. That's the only way to remove them from yahoo. That's the only way that. And the answer, the solution, is reviving technical, vocational education and training in this country.
Everyone needs to learn valuable hands-on skills because in the long run, these skills can act as a means in which income is generated. Therefore, our focus on Weekend Deal today will be on the state of technical and vocational education in Nigeria. Weekend Deal.
The state of technical and vocational students and their education in Nigeria. We'll also dovetail a little bit, just that we continue our conversation of yesterday, looking at tertiary institutions, some universities, polytechnics, state and federal. Many of us have heard about the Joint Admissions Matriculation Board, but we don't know, for those of us who went to school in the 90s, in the 80s, I don't know how familiar you are with the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examinations, which is what is very prevalent now. After doing your JAM, you do your UTME, and Magdalene put something together on that. But before we take Magdalene's feature, let's get to meet our guest. Professor Nuhu Yakub is a former Vice Chancellor of Sokoto State University, as well as University of Abuja. Hello, Prof.
Hello.
Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Prof is loaded. We know that there's a lot we'll learn from him today.
Well,
but let Maggie tell us a bit about what she found doing her research. Statistics from the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAM, show that over 350,000 of the over 4.5 million students who sat for the 2022 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Exams, UTME, scored 200 and above, while a total of 520,596 candidates scored 190 and above in the examinations. Further research reveals that despite the above outcome of marks scored, admission into their various universities of choice often proves difficult.
Previously,
Once you write JAMB and you meet the minimum cutoff mark, those that are admitted on merit lists are there, and then the university also have some percentage, catchment area, and so on. But as the scramble for admission increased and the population, because the universities are overwhelmed with number of applicants, the process became very, very competitive.
In a related development, in 2021, a total of 4,948 applicants scored 300 and above in the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board exams, while only a total of 3,492 students gained admission into higher institutions, leaving over 1,400 hopeful students stranded due to the Post-Unified Tertiary Matriculation Exams, UTME.
If you have 100,000 people wanting to enter medical college in a particular university, and the space can only take 10,000, then there have to be some level of screening. It's not possible for you to take the whole 100,000 might even be qualified, for example. They might have met even the cutoff point. But there have to be other criteria so that, because the space might not be available.
Over the years, there have been controversies surrounding the post-UTME results, as many say it may not be a true test of the knowledge of the students.
Some of the UTME are just mere screening. I know of universities that after you write JAM and you get the cutoff mark, the UTME is just mere oral screening, or sometimes you upload your details and then it is screened. So it does not necessarily mean that post UTME must be another written exam. Some universities give written exams, some don't.
To avoid unnecessary delays that keep students at home because of the UTME exam results and arbitrary course placements, as well as cut-off marks for some special courses, candidates nationwide advocate for another method of screening.
The first place, do we really need a central admission processing body like JAM in our university system? That is one point that we should know. In advanced countries, you don't need that. You could just go direct, apply to a university, and if the university feels that you are qualified, the university can outrightly admit you. Now, with the reforms and the licenses that have been granted to several private universities, licenses that have been granted to several individuals and public institutions to operate, there is now need to rethink the issue of JAM.
While stakeholders agree that students should be well equipped academically to compete with their peers globally, they also push for a more ideal method of admitting students into various tertiary institutions in order to avoid delays and incessant, frustrating experiences for parents and guardians as well as the students. When we're having the conversation, when we're researching this topic, going right and left, looking for angles, analysis, and dimensions, one of our bosses said tertiary education is not a right, that it's a privilege. Professor Yakub, that it's a privilege. Perhaps in other countries of the world, here people just assume that once you finish secondary school, just go and enter university. It's like it's a given. But that it should be for those who truly qualify and can study and can be well accessed to the extent that they can perform well academically.
Well, I thought what the JAM exists to do is to screen, students who are eligible to go into the universities. I don't buy the argument that university education is a privilege. It's not a right. If a child has gone to through the primary school, has gone to the secondary school, and is qualified, because there are criteria for going to the university, a minimum of 5 credits, 2 of which will be in English language and mathematics, and invariably You get students, actually having, some of them, 9 credits for the number of courses they have written their examination. And then, as I said, JAMB is there to screen. And that's why they can conduct
So
entrance
isn't that what
examination.
makes it a privilege for those who pass
No,
well
no,
enough?
the thing is, I don't understand, this idea of tertiary education is not a right. It's, if you merit, if you meet the criteria of entrance, you shouldn't be denied.
Okay, yes.
Because what it means is that, we are unconsciously, rejecting, manpower, future manpower for the country. This is the way I
No,
look
let's
at
not
it.
put the cart before the horse now.
I don't understand what you mean by that anyway.
Okay,
Yes.
we have two arguments now,
Yeah.
or 2 points of from this conversation. One was one is the case of where people are gated even when they qualify. When they get the cutoff mark, they are told that what the university can offer them is just, maybe if they want to read medicine, they offered microbiology. The other one is parents or guardians expect oftentimes that once you go through secondary education, tertiary education is the next dimension for you. There's another school of thought. Some students are not thinking in that direction. Some don't want to go. Some are not excited to be there. Some don't have the academic know-how or prowess.
I think you are trying to make this thing look complex. The point I am making simply is that you have JAMB. What is the role of JAMB? The role of JAMB is to screen students who are eligible to go into either the universities or the polytechnics,
Okay.
as well as the colleges of education.
Okay.
So if a child merits to go to, they has chosen university, and he has scored above, for instance, 300, marks in the joint examination, joint examinations and matriculation board examination. Why are you denying that child from going into the university? The whole argument about, it is not a right.
Okay.
It's what I debunk.
Is it right once you
When
qualify?
if you meet the minimum qualification, I'm not saying everybody should go in. No.
Okay.
If you meet the minimum qualification, if they say the cutoff point is 180 or 200, and we have had 200, other than essential conditions that will not make it possible, maybe because of lack of space, and this should be explained to the candidates. Because what happens is that a student who has scored, adequate marks to get into the university, he doesn't get in because it's denied because it is not a right. Next year he goes to write the same another JAMB examination, and he will fail. And it becomes a psychological problem for the candidates. So this is the point I actually want to stress. For those who have the entry requirements, it is vital, because we are talking about manpower development for this country.
Okay, let's now look at, some people have also talked about the essence of the UTME. In our time, we just did the JAM, you pass, you go. If you have the your papers, you pass the JAM, you go. These days, there is UTME, and it also stops some people who have also passed JAM.
You see, let's look at it this way. The requirement is get your school certificate, or you have already gone to SS3. I don't know what they call it now. You are in SS3. You have start for your senior secondary school certificate examination, and you have your required credits. You have also done JAMB, and you have also the required marks to go into this field you want to go and study. The only thing that the constraint will be, these universities don't have the capacity. And that's why I'm saying that alternatives have been provided by the mere existence of private schools. Some people will even go to the extent of sending their children or their wards to universities overseas. When it gets so critical that a boy or the ward cannot enter.
There's preferential treatment.
You cannot get into our own system. then all these opportunities are there for them. Private universities in Nigeria, if the parents can afford, or the parents may decide, oh, I'm not even. I don't even think that the standards of even the private schools or the public schools in Nigeria, will be enough for my children, and they have the means. They decide to go
enough
to
in sense of the standard is dropping, or
no. I'm saying that there are so many opportunities
within and outside the country.
Yes.
Okay, we have our students even going to Benin, to Cotonou, to Togo to school. Okay, but like I was telling you earlier, the incidents of some students getting the cutoff mark, and when they go to the school, maybe you want to read law, you are told what they have on offer for you is English, even when you have passed the cutoff point. Some people, like you said, they just end the story there.
Well, I also think that there's malfunctioning in the whole process, because the
malfunction or corruption.
Well, you can call it corruption. Something has gone amiss. That's the point I want to make. Otherwise, you have criteria, national merit, educationally, less candidates coming from educationally backward areas. Then you have catchment criterion that is also used. So you cannot say that a candidate who has scored 300 marks, for instance, who probably should be should be competing at the level of national merit, cannot get admission into the school. That's why I said there must be some malfunctioning or if you like, you can call it corruption.
But being a former vice chancellor, can such a thing happen in a tertiary institution without the knowledge of those at the highest level?
What is the highest level?
Vice chancellor.
No, that is why what I'm saying. When I was vice chancellor, we'll get our results. Those who have selected University of Abuja, the list will come to us. What we do is we have admission committee, which will go and screen these candidates based on the courses they have. In fact, we send the results to each department. Make your selection, and they bring this thing back to admission committee, where the vice chancellor, or at least the Senate, will meet over it. So, what is it that everything will be screened, including the decision of each department, and where we also discover that the department has omitted, or as you say, somebody got high marks and he's not admitted. We ask the question, what is responsible for this? And at that point, if it is a question of the candidate does not have the required number of credits to do the course, or the combination from JAMB of the candidate is not does not permit him to go into the course they want to do, that's why we actually deny or we advise that they should go to a different program other than what they have chosen.
It's interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting.
And
so
it is so objective in such a manner that if it is done, the VC of the institution will excuse himself from any blame. Just as also the department, in fact, the head of department who deliberately decides to omit somebody who has done very well, and he has the cutoff points, he has also the required number of credits, and the choice of courses for the JAMB that he did are relevant to the course. There's no way it is unheard of. I actually don't know how to even describe it. But
describe such an action or the person who's perpetrating it, because it does exist. And it's not the first time we're hearing of it.
I have read the point you raised. I read this also somewhere in the social media. But I don't even think that the thing will, in fact, the parent of the child doesn't have to go to JAMB. They go back to the university where this thing is perpetrated.
Tertiary education has remained an essential tool for sustainable development, fostering personal growth, reduction of poverty, and boosting shared prosperity amongst the nation. The proliferation and licensing of tertiary degree awarding institutions to private bodies in Nigeria, especially polytechnics, colleges of education, and vocational institutions, is on the increase. One may ask, could this be politically motivated, business-oriented, or born out of a shared need for improving access to education?
It's born out of a shared need for a lot of people to go to school who are not qualified for the university's benchmark for admission.
Closely far away from 60% of the Nigerian population is from the youth area. And to train this youth means that we have to have as many institutions as possible. Government cannot do all this.
It is of no doubt that the students in private institutions enjoy unbroken academic calendar following the perennial issues associated with the unending ASU and ASUP industrial actions. But the question that comes to mind is, do these private polytechnics and colleges of education have good standards to operate effectively?
In terms of even facility, the structures, the government colleges of education and polytechnics have, you can't compare them, because I've seen a lot of them in the country, and you can't compare them. But I think that they can also do well, because some of the private universities, they are really improving. So I think they can also improve and also enhance the standard of education.
They are of standard because commissions give a benchmark, a minimum standard, and they come in, I think, 4 years. After 4 years, they come for accreditation. When they come, they accredit. If they are not standard, they will, such schools will fail accreditation. So they monitor what they do in such schools.
Again, what impact do these private institutions have on our tertiary education?
Colleges of education are made to train quality teachers that will impact knowledge on the children. Teach courses that are relevant to the development of the nation.
In Nigeria, the regulatory bodies that supervise and oversee the operations of both private and public institutions include the National University Commission, National Board for Technical Education, National Commission for Colleges of Education, and Universal Basic Education Commission.
Every year or every 5 years, they go around to accredit polytechnics and colleges. Why they do this regular visitation is to ensure that the things required to be put down on ground are there, and the ones required have been sourced and made to be set up. Technical workshops, laboratories, research centers, manpower, and all that.
And how are they being able to meet up with these requirements and needs as compared to international societies and so on and so forth? But the regulatory bodies perhaps need to step up their game.
However, in Rivers State, the case is different, as the state only records 4 polytechnics, 1 federal, 2 state, and 1 private, 2 federal colleges of education, and her one and only Rivers State College of Education, which has upgraded to Ignatius Ajuri University of Education. One can confidently say the private institutions stimulate economic growth, job creation, and a safe learning environment for our young stars.
I'm happy to hear from you that a vice chancellor who has the integrity that we know many of our VCs have will not sit back and let such a thing happen. And the way the story goes, when the parents, as we hear, when a certain registrar called the vice chancellor, he immediately apologized, and the boy or the girl or the people involved were immediately admitted into the school. We're also taking a look at...
you see, the impact of that is that the vice chancellor has actually diminished his own authority, unconsciously or consciously. He has diminished it because he doesn't need to get, external force to come and tell him what he should do. If he knows what he's doing, it pains me to hear this, happening now. It didn't happen, I couldn't even imagine this happening when I was vice chancellor, because the stages of admission, it's not done by, the stages are controlled by various levels, from the department to the faculty, from the faculty to Senate. And somebody will come and tell me that through all these levels, nobody has spotted
such a thing.
Yeah.
And they won't spot it because what we see that it is deliberate.
No.
That's why when you said
what I'm
it's
saying,
a
that,
malfunction,
at the end of the day,
I said it's in some cases, some will use another term.
Yeah.
They will call it corruption.
No, that's what I'm saying, that at the end of the day,
done.
at the end of the day, it's the Vice Chancellor that is to blame.
Okay.
But because
he ought to take responsibility.
Of course.
Because he's at the...
Of course.
Yes.
He can't explain it. How will somebody... I mean, what is important about education institutions is that we are always looking for merit. So you now have merit and you are, putting it aside for demerit. Oh, I can't understand it.
It may be shocking, but it's not unbelievable. We're discussing education today, but there are many things happening in other sectors.
Oh, of course.
That perhaps if you hear, while you were performing there optimally, such things were not happening. Let's also look at the employability of our graduates. Research shows that over 2.5 million graduates emerge from different institutions annually. And oftentimes we hear, we read, some we've experienced because we see them, we hear them, they write some things we can't read. So that's why the term employability has become a fairly used word. We hear it often now. So we're wondering, is it the courses that they read that have become outdated? Is it the attention their facilitators pay to them? Is it the students who are not serious with their studies? What is happening? Should we rejig the study practice or the curriculum?
I really don't know what we have to do, because
or is it that they want to go and learn skills?
No,
and they were forced.
This idea of, because what the point we are raising, what it points out to, is simply the fact that there is falling standard in our educational system, and I've always had the opportunity to debate this with with people who raise them. I do not think we have fallen standard in our education. In fact, the late Professor Fafunwa was the one who actually put this to rest. May God bless his soul. He's gone. I mean, he was one of the greatest educationists we ever had in this country. And the man said, "How do you define a falling standard? If it is on the basis of the number of credits people have scored, compare it to the earlier days. People were probably writing only 5 subjects or 6 subjects for their school start examination, and they will have opportunities to actually concentrate on 5 subjects. As compared to what happens today, the minimum is 9 in secondary schools these days. And then when they get go to the universities, the facilities that we even have in some universities now are better than during my own time or the time of all those who even went to the university in the early 70s.
Professor Nuhu, is that an accurate representation of what is going on?
It is
because
accurate.
From what the research we have had and some people we have spoken with, they tell us that the facilities are not there.
No, it depends on what they mean by facilities.
That's in some places, some medical students have to use stove.
No, you see, again, let me put this thing in context. At least I'm familiar with what because I have handled administration of universities in 2 places. First of all, let's look at budgeting or the budget system in the university. There's the Vice Chancellor who goes to prepare a budget and does not make provisions for instance, reagent, things that are needed in the labs or in the laboratories of the student. Is not a serious university administrator. What we consider to be poor standard of our education in this country, our students who graduate and go to graduate schools elsewhere, not even in this country, they go there and excel. If you now say, okay, the students are not employable, and it's a criterion now to use to put down the standard of our own institutions, I will beg to disagree. Every country in Africa insists on everybody should speak good English. He said the Indians do not speak the good English that we are asked to speak. but they have also been able to use their own language to produce engineers, to produce, pilots and so on, people who have actually made India to be what it is today.
Okay. Ahmed Maman Gauba says, he called it question. So good morning, SARS. It's addressed to you. My son wrote JAMB in 2022 and scored 194 to study mechatronics. But he was not given the admission because he's less than 18 years. So when does the criteria for admission to university become such that until a child is 18, he can't enter a tertiary institution? Okay, this is Usman Aruna. He said this program, also from Gombe, the program is very interesting. I have been commenting on your program, but you have never read my comments. Usman, thank you. We have read it today. We thank you for commenting. There's more, but let Prof address this one's
Which one do you want me to address now?
the first one about the young guy. This guy said his son
is less than 18.
Yes.
And he's denied. I don't know. I must be frank with you. I don't know. What is the age limit? I can't comment on that because I don't also know whether there's such a regulation. All I know is that what is required for entrance into the university is your secondary school certificate, education certificate, SSCC. Okay, so secondary school education certificate, you have it. You also go through JAMB, and then the post-UTME you are talking about earlier. Students will have to go through it. Well, throughout my experiences as vice chancellor, there was never a time the question of age came in. But since I left, I've retired, as I said. I do not know whether new regulations have come in. So I cannot comment on that. But all I know is that I never experienced it throughout the tenures I had.
But what was the limit while you were admitting? Did you take 15-year-old? Did you take 16?
No, I'm talking of I'm talking about the criteria that we are using.
I know. What did you use then?
Age will be indicated, but we are more concerned about scores.
How qualified the student was.
How
Can
qualified.
I ask you something, Prof?
Yes.
Because when we say the state, I'd like you to also delve into vocational and technical, because you are a Nigerian and you know what's happening in our country. But let me say something. Let me ask you this. Because when we use the word the state of tertiary education in that context, that state tells us that things are not as they were, or things are not as we would like them to be.
Good.
What would you describe the state of our tertiary education in Nigeria today? Please do it in 2 minutes. Where are we now?
Thank you so very much. We have problems in the educational sector generally, but at the tertiary level, I've mentioned also the point earlier that ASU have been constantly going on strike as a result of inadequacies or what they consider to be the problems confronting the tertiary education system, particularly the university, and also the union in the college, the polytechnics and so on. The fact of the matter is that adequate funding is not available to this level of education. To education generally. But it is it becomes very critical because it is at that level. This sophisticated equipment, the laboratories and everything have to be, functioning, and they have to be at the standard that you can get in similar institutions, either in the private institutions or universities outside the country. Everything about our education system has been based on the British pattern. They have changed. They have moved forward. And, I don't know why, there was even a time they wanted to convert, Polytechnic of Ibadan, into University of Technology, that of ABU, and I think another one in the east, the southeast also. What has stopped it? Sometimes we will even come up with a policy, that, is aimed at actually taking a giant step forward. And before you know it, the thing will just fizzle out. Nobody talks about it. So I believe that, we need to integrate the various educational, levels of educational institutions we have in this country. And if we can do that, nobody's going to be thinking that, they have lower scores. I mean, if we are very much concerned about technical and vocational education.
But shouldn't we be?
We should be. That's what I'm saying. I say if we are concerned, I'm actually trying to suggest what we need to do is to give them priority, give them attention, provide the facilities.
Abubakar Idris from Kaduna says the quality of our education is falling due to the corruption in all aspects of our lives. He's not blaming it on the education system. He said the few number of Nigerians who go outside the country and excel do so as a result of extra efforts and the can-do spirit of the Nigerian. Our never say die.
What is this that them to go and excel? The point I'm making is that students go there. I have never had any overseas saying come and do preliminary. Prerequisite before the graduates from Nigerian universities. I have had 2 children who have gone to after their undergraduate studies here.
Went to do their masters.
They went. They went, and I paid for my pocket for their education, and they excelled. And they didn't when they went there. They were not told that come and take makeup courses.
So isn't it the can-do spirit of the typical Nigerian?
Yeah, that's the point. The point I'm making earlier that seasoned educationists has actually debunked this idea of foreign standard. Don't use language. In fact, the major point that Fafowa made while he was alive, don't use English language as a criterion to judge whether or not our standard is good. This is the point. Because by the time there are people who, I am not a scientist, okay? So there's no way I can go and, perform wonders. In the lab, in the chemistry lab, for instance.
Without the requisite equipment.
I don't even have the knowledge. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Those who have gone to, they may not have all the most sophisticated or the up-to-date equipment, but what they have, if we actually, use them properly, that's the point I'm making.
Okay, and that is so key. We want to thank you, Professor Nuhu Yakub.
Thank you so very
for
much.
Our conversation. You make it so interesting, and you make us think. Like there's no box. It is possible. The resources are laying, but if we deploy them adequately and prioritize, we will achieve more. Thank you, former Vice Chancellor of University of Abuja and Sokoto State University. We wish you well.
Thank you very much.
We'll have
you too.
On again. You are watching Weekend Deal. And this time, we'll take a short break, but we'll be right back. Don't go away. Weekend Deal. You are watching Weekend Deal. We've been talking with Professor Nuhu Yakub, and he took us to many different directions and gave us so many reasons why things are the way, and debunked some claims or allegations that were made. We go to Lagos now, where the focus is on colleges of education. According to the Deputy Provost of the College of Education, Akoka, Lagos, facilitators and teachers are trained and retrained so that they can impact the best quality on the students that they teach. We can learn more now.
Education is said to be the building block of every society. It's regarded as the essential source of nation building that leads to the growth of the country. To this end, the colleges of education seeks to train and produce quality teachers that will impact students who would in turn do well in various sectors of the country. So what impact can we say that the College of Education has on the Nigerian society?
The College of Education system, has been training teachers at the level of Nigerian certificate in education. That is the certificate that we award, and that sector handles the foundation of our educational system. That's talking about the basic education. So, teachers that are trained by our sector are the ones that teach at this level. And of course, that is the foundation. So when we get it right at that level, there is that impact that can be now transferred to the other tiers of education.
Today's colleges of education is faced with unprecedented array of challenges and threats, ranging from enrollment, high costs, political interference, and underfunding. This may likely affect the quality of teachers produced.
Where issue of infrastructural development, issue of moral decadence. If we now separate the two now, if you are talking about infrastructural development, that of facilities, that has to do with funding. So government needs to do more in terms of funding.
I think generally the problem faced by colleges of education emanate from the status of teachers in the society. Don't forget that our products here are produced for the society, and generally our products are meant to fit in the basic education sector. So our products are primarily teachers from basic 1 to junior secondary school. That's the first 9 years of education. And we're all aware of the low status that teachers at that level command in the society.
These shortcomings in education may yield to poor educational achievements and limited employability skills. Indeed, the future of any educated human being is determined by the quality of education he or she gets from the primary level, and that is very well determined by the efforts of teachers at the basic level. Nevertheless, teachers are perceived to be of no significant status in the society, and this has discouraged lots of individuals from proudly taking up the teaching profession.
Education is the key that unlocks the potentials of any nation, and particularly the foundation. And that's why at times I get worried when people relegate teachers at the primary school level as if they don't belong. It is good to be a lecturer. It is good to be a professor. But the fact is that the products that feed tertiary institutions, or even secondary schools, they are products from the primary schools. And no matter what effort we put up at the higher levels, if the foundation is faulty, there is little anybody can do. And therefore, attention needs to be placed on improving the lot of primary school teachers, primary school education generally. And by that same token, colleges of education.
Education has been and will continue to be one of the major building blocks of the society. In order to foster quality education at all levels, it is pertinent that quality teachers are produced.
Okay, yes, very interesting. We're talking about education at all levels, especially at the higher level after secondary school. Colleges of education should not be ignored. You know, the students who go there oftentimes are well taught and they come out with a grasp of what it takes to be disciplined and sometimes are employable. Okay, during the week, we had a chat with Dave Omang. He's the team leader of Edu Radio, amongst other things. Many say that it's time to transform education at the tertiary level in Nigeria because it promotes lifelong opportunities and literacy as well. That's what we're talking about it today with someone who has a lot of answers and will provide clarity for us. Let's welcome Omang Dave, comrade, team lead of Educational Radio and a member of the Presidential Technical Working Group on Alternate School Program. It's great to have you with us on Weekend Deal.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
I know we caught you today. You are quite busy, but let's just hit the ground running.
No problem.
We're looking at tertiary education in Nigeria, and we just saw a feature that talks about a proliferation of vocational institutions, polytechnics, and technical schools. Are they well placed? Are they well strategized? Are we getting the desired output from the students when they come out of school?
Well, thank you very much for having me today. I want to say, if we were having it, the number of out of school would have been reduced. Take the case study of India. A lot of the same Indians that are in Nigeria didn't really go to the tertiary institutions, the university as it were. Some of them passed through technical schools, technical colleges, and they passed through it, and today they are professionals. So they are going to other third world countries to do what they know how to do best, i.e. ICT and the rest of them. Like in the case of Nigeria, it is one thing to build, it's another thing to equip. A valued technical or vocational education that is followed up with the infrastructures, followed up with commitment to really bring out the people. It is not just in the number of having 1,000 without value attaching to it.
Interesting. Are you speaking for Nigeria-wide? Are we qualifying everything together, the polytechnics, the vocational schools, as well as the technical schools? Is there any area we'll say we're standing well?
Let me take you back. Let's go back to the universities. Only recently we have federal universities are well over 43, state universities are over 48, and private universities are about 70 or 73, bringing the total number of about 170 tertiary institutions.
Tertiary institutions.
Now, the polytechnics, federal polytechnics are about 25, state polytechnics are about 38, including federal states, and maybe the private owned are about 30-something. They're bringing it to about 150, 159. The question again is, how far has these schools fared? Has it been able to reflect to the reality of Nigerians?
Are you referring to the quality of the graduates they produce?
No, of course we should assess that. Don't forget again, the number of out of school in Nigeria has gone higher from only recently 13.2, 13.3, 18. It now went up to 20 million according to UNICEF. UNESCO will not want to identify those that are in the Almajiri setup as, being going to school. That was why the alternate school project or program was actually launched. The idea is to see that there were skilled people that had skills. There were those that didn't go to school, either because their parents didn't know the value of schools. There were those that didn't know that didn't have the opportunity of going to school. The girl child, those that have been displaced, either in the IDP camps, those scavengers that have skills but they are just there. Let's give them the commonest thing, like arithmetic, maybe basic English, and social studies, for them to begin to know that education is important.
So what can be done at this stage? What steps are necessary that can be taken to bring about quality on the one hand, and then again, those who are already out of these institutions, what ought they to begin to do now to shore up the value that's been added at the tertiary or vocational or technical level that may not be equal with their peers globally?
Well, you see, a lot has been mentioned on papers. A lot has been heard on radio and television, or seen on radio and television. But it's unfortunate. How do we equate what we've heard with what is practical, what we are seeing?
But tell us what you've heard first.
Well, that the number of private schools has increased, private universities, licensing of private universities, licensing of private polytechnics, monotechnics, colleges of education, and all of that. You remember, let's go back again. In the early 80s, we had some foreigners that were in Nigeria. We had Indians, we had
School
British.
exchange.
Exchange program. They were here doing their stuff. And you know what it means? Foreign exchange were being. Nigerians leave Nigeria to Cotonou. Why are they going to Cotonou? I had been to Cotonou myself. In the course of my curiosity, let me go and see. You just see a story building like this with just about 5, give it to them, 10, 20 rooms. It's a university. They are scattered everywhere, and Nigerians are going there. Nigerians go to Niger Republic.
Togo too.
Now, let me tell you, Nigerians in South Africa, as at 2018 statistics, was about 30,000 Nigerian students. Nigerians in Ghana, as at that 2018, was about 35 to 50,000 students. Nigerians in the Americas was close to about 11,000 plus. Nigerians in France was close to 19,000. Nigerians in Ukraine was close to about 18,000. Right? Put all of these things together. You know what that means? Capital flight. Money is going.
Definitely.
Opportunities are not given to them to come down to Nigeria to earn. So that when they come here, you know what happens? Let's assume that they only buy pure water. They will stay in people's houses. They'll buy stuff. They'll fly or they'll go by road. Monies will come in and nothing is coming in. Right? Nigerians are going out. Have you taken a walk around some of the schools in the FCT? They're in a sorry state. Some of them don't even have seats to sit in this era.
So are we even saying that at the secondary level, we're not even giving them the deliverables to ensure that we even have quality students entering the tertiary institutions?
You know why I'm dancing with my hands?
Tell us.
You know, in the system, you garbage it's what you give into the system that it brings out. When you have a good student that you breed up from primary through secondary to university, what's the consequence? It's a good student.
It's first class all the way.
Now, in this millennium, you still go to schools, there's a university, there's in the East. The indoor theater, the lecture theater that was supposed to accommodate just 120 or 100 or thereabout, takes between 300 students for medicine students. How do you expect that medicine student to go through that rigors and come out and be sane?
The graduates we had from those top-notch universities, the first, second, and the third, Ibadan, Nsukka, Ife, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, they are the ones who today look at their children and grandchildren and they are, I won't say disappointed, they expect better.
Thank God you're saying
it's not what they were or what they saw that they are seeing now in their children and grandchildren. So everybody is concerned. That's why I began by saying some say there needs to be a transformation in education. Your final words, Mr. Omar.
Well, I want to say, let me quote the words of Nelson Mandela again. He said, education is the only weapon that we can use to change the world. With education, you can bring peace. And there's this other one that said, you could use the best nuclear weapon, you can destroy the world. But with education, you bring peace. Education is peace. And peace is education. We must work. We must work. It is a must. They must declare an emergency in the educational sector if we want the best. And that will help us do what? Reduce corruption. Thank you very much.
It's been great chatting with you, Comrade Omang Dave, Team Lead of Educational Radio, Member, Presidential Technical Working Committee, Working Group on Alternate School Program. Very enlightening chat. You're watching Weekend Deal. We'll take a break. We urge you to stay with us. We'll be right back. We've come to a wrap for our program today. We thank you for being a part of it. Let me leave you with the words of Nelson Mandela. He says education goes beyond the skills we learn for economic empowerment. We must continue to broaden our minds on a daily basis. Take in, learn about everyone, learn what is good and discard what is negative. God bless Nigeria. Bye-bye.